When I think about trying to describe the relationship with my mother, I always come to think of a dance. When I say that, you may be thinking of a graceful ballet or an elegant waltz, but when I use that analogy, I'm thinking more of the kind of dance that happens in a junior high gymnasium, the kind with averted eyes and sweaty palms and unsure hands. You see, my mother didn't raise me, so our relationship lacks the rapport that develops from years of love, conflict, and reconciliation. When I was a baby, my parents divorced, and because of many factors known and unknown, my dad was granted full custody of my older brother and me, and my mother had visitation on weekends and holidays. To say that my parents' divorce was acrimonious would be an understatement. To add to that contention, my dad, in short order, remarried a woman with 9 children of her own. She also had undiagnosed mental illnesses and would, for the next 16 years, find a strange satisfaction in humiliating and belittling my brother and me. My dad and his wife added 3 children to the family in quick succession. And for those of you that are having trouble with the math, we were now a family of 16. Around the time I turned 4, my dad and his wife decided to move their whole brood from northern Michigan, where my mother lived, to the hills of West Virginia. This, of course, placed some significant financial and geographic obstacles in the path of my mother when it came to visitation. Nevertheless, that first Christmas after the move, she made the drive to pick up my brother and me for the holidays. What she saw when she arrived shocked and infuriated her. 16 people living on the salary of an auto mechanic meant that we lived in overt poverty. According to my mother, we were filthy with black rings around our mouths and noses from the coal used to heat the dilapidated hotel we were calling a house. Additionally, my brother and I both had lice, and I had open sores on my head from scratching. My mother made a decision in that moment that would forever change all of our lives. She decided she would take us for Christmas and would not be bringing us back. In other words, she began committing a crime known as non-custodial parental abduction. I have small swatches in my memory of that time with my mom. We were on the run, so we lived in different places, from Destin, Florida to Denver, Colorado. I remember the beach and the balcony of our Florida apartment. I remember walking to the 7-Eleven near our home in Colorado to buy candy bars, a Baby Ruth for me and a Butterfinger for my brother. I remember running to my mother's bed when I was scared and immediately feeling soothed by her warmth and scent as I climbed in with her. At this point, I was almost 5, and my mother had enrolled my brother and me in school. So I also remember being called down to the principal's office, where we were picked up by 2 police officers and transported to a temporary foster home. This was 1984, the height of the abduction scare frenzy, and our pictures had been published on missing children posters that were distributed weekly to schools all over the nation. My brother and I had been recognized by my kindergarten teacher. We didn't get to see my mother, and we didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't see my mother again outside of a courtroom until I was 21. In the intervening years, I suffered emotional and occasional physical abuse at the hands of my stepmother. She took great pleasure in her triumph over my mother and having rescued us from her, but she had no desire to be our mother. My brother and I were often the target of her ridicule and the butt of her jokes, and we sought refuge in each other and occasionally in my dad, who periodically acknowledged his part in the situation in which we found ourselves, but felt powerless to change our circumstances. At the age of 17, I graduated from high school and loaded up my Honda hatchback with all of my earthly belongings and traveled across the country to attend college. Only 2 of my 13 siblings had successfully navigated the process of applying to and attending college, and they mentored me as best they could. While attending college, I met a man named Scott, who made me laugh and also feel safer than I ever had before, and he wasn't scared away by all of my family trauma and drama. We fell in love and drove to Las Vegas and eloped. That was 24 years ago. In the intervening years, Scott and I both finished college, started careers, and made ourselves into a family with 3 amazing kids, a son and 2 daughters. In those 24 years, my mother has slowly come back into my life, tentative and unsure steps between intimate strangers. She attended my college graduation and the birth of my 3rd child. But these events, while happy, always find us in our awkward dance. Me afraid of asking too much of her, and her afraid of invading my life too much. Our relationship lacks the natural give and take of mothers who've had their whole lives to choreograph their own unique steps. This part of a lack of a mother that I didn't anticipate is the lack of knowledge I have about how to be a mother. What does healthy motherhood look like and feel like? My only maternal examples were absent or dysfunctional. So as I raise my own 2 daughters, I have to make up the steps of our dance as I go along, always afraid of stepping on toes or tripping and falling. But when my Jax curls herself into my lap to describe in exact detail what she needs to create the perfect Halloween costume, or my Paige scampers in the night to climb in my bed and bury her face in my neck, my heart leaps with joy. Because even though I'm making it up as I go along, our steps flow in a way that is once new and familiar. I know when they're going to pirouette or when to stand aside for their solo, because I know them. And with every argument and tearful resolution, every triumph and disappointment, we're choreographing our own unique dance, one that they will someday teach their own daughters, because they will know the steps by heart.